Welcome back to the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast. Today, super excited as always, but we had Joe Williams on, who, if you don't know Joe Williams, where have you been? But 4-store pharmacy owner out of North Carolina, I believe just south of Fayetteville, basically, from what I understand, if you know the area. Also owns, if a lot of folks have probably have used those services, but Apex Consulting as well with Ben Jolly. So talked through a ton, talked about the, obviously his journey through pharmacy, like how he actually started his story around how he started his pharmacy and the work it took to even like afford the down payment for it. It's just, it's insane. So just also when you hear the story, you go, makes sense for Joe. Talk through like just that entire journey himself, how he basically 12x'd the store, basically took a store that he bought. It's doing now 12 times the volume it used to, and not through a ton of acquisitions either. Like, I mean, he's got a few acquisitions because he got 4 stores, but like just his approach to that kind of growth is pretty cool. Talks about just some of the things he sees in this consulting part of his business, but also we talk a lot about the Medicare enrollment piece, how that's new to him, how well he's doing with that, how that's affecting patients, how that's affecting his own bottom line as well. So there's lots of other stuff we talk about along with NCPA and what he's doing with the core program, but we'll take you there now. Joe, I haven't got to host you ever. So this is my first time hosting you, even though we've got to hang out a ton of times. So I appreciate you being on. And I know you're like one of the busiest people in pharmacy, in my opinion. And now you have 4 pharmacies.
Right.
But you also have a whole consulting business where you help a ton of pharmacies.
Yeah.
I think y'all just wrapped up a class with NCPA as well. So, but if you can, I think it's cool to start a little bit just in the beginning, how the ownership journey began.
Okay, sure.
For Joe. Well,
so, and thank you for the compliment there. Yeah, I'm probably non-traditional in more ways than one. I tell people that I'm a pharmacist by accident. So if the stars would have lined up any differently, I'd probably be a plumber, HVAC, electrician, contractor, something like that. Cause I'm probably way more blue collar than I am anything else. But I was working in chain retail for one of the big box stores, and I was working 90 hours a week, and because I'm a workaholic and I can't help myself. And then just eventually came to the realization that I needed some work-life balance. Tried to figure out what I was going to do different, and somehow came to not somehow, it was because I had a pharmacist walk into that big box needing a job that had been a high school science teacher. And she told me this really great story, and I thought, well, heck, I can do that. And I remembered that day one of the job at that big box retailer, my manager told me what an idiot I was for working beside of him, because I should have been working in the back wearing a white coat, right? So I listened. I go back to pharmacy school at 27, graduate at 30. I got an MBA along the way. I already had a business degree from way back as an undergrad. And so came out, immediately went to work for an independent. The plan was, you're going to own 100 pharmacies as quickly as you can acquire them. This night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This was young Joe's aspirations.
Yeah. Well,
I love it.
Old Joe still has crazy aspirations. So that's not, hopefully that never
just a
changes.
little different.
Right. Yeah. They've modified over the years. But yeah, I told myself that I had to own a pharmacy in 3 years post-graduation. It ended up taking about 3.5, just because links don't understand pharmacy. If there's, all of you watching, you know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they don't get it. So I bought a house, a foreclosure, and worked on it every night. I got a second job as a pharmacist. I started flea marketing, and I started going to liquidation auctions and buying and eBaying. That's where the money came from to buy my first store. Literally, I would go to my 9 to 5 or my 9 to 6, leave, go to another pharmacy that was open until 9 and work the bench there. And then I would leave there, and I would go to the foreclosure, and I would work on it until midnight. And then I sold it. And that's where my down payment came for my first pharmacy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And
that's grit.
Well,
man.
I mean, if you've got to go, if you put all this stuff on paper, there's really nothing to stop you, right? So I'm going to do this in 3 years. Well, then how do you do that in 3 years? You put it on paper, and then you don't let anything stop you between now and then.
What can you expect from Connect 2025? Connect is an event that redefines what's possible in pharmacy. Join the Red Sale family all in one place. Learn directly from product experts with classes tailored to getting the most out of your Red Sale solution. PioneerRx, BestRx, NRx, Prime Care, DocuTrack, Delivery Track, and Access LTC. Connect with fellow professionals and Red Sale team members during roundtables, collaborative sessions, and customer panels. Want to experience all that Connect 2025 has to offer? Register now at connectpharmacyconference.com.
So you're a write it down person when it comes to that kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
If I don't, because you and I have talked enough to know that there's a million things passing through both of our minds all the time, right? If it doesn't go on paper, even if it's the best idea that I ever came up with,
it's gone.
15 minutes later, I've forgotten what I was even thinking about, right? Yeah. So if I have those ahas, it's either a voice note in my phone or it's written in my journal that goes with me everywhere I go. And sometimes you might not act on that for 6 months, a year, but when you feel like, okay, I'm caught up, which has never happened to me, but if I get the sensation that I'm getting caught up, well, then I go into the book and I look in the ideas. Oh yeah, that's next. That's what I said I would do. And so that's where it comes from. So I bought that first store, and then and it was kind of a dream situation because the guy that owned it, very, very trustworthy guy, did it was a C Corp, and I did an asset purchase, which I've never done another one, probably will never do another one again. So it's like the stars lined up that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Most people would tell you that that's super risky, but at the time it really worked out. And low volume store that now we do 12 times what it did when I bought it. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so what happened, you buy that store and you're asking the rest of the staff, how do you do things here? And you listen to them because you don't want to upset the apple crate. You want things to kind of be a smooth transition. And so I did that for 5 months. And I can remember this because every day I would write on a calendar what happened that day, how many fills I had, what the weather conditions were, all this. I'm tracking all this stuff when I first started on paper. And I can tell you, oh God, let me tell you this story. And you can edit this if you have to. So
you're good.
I buy this store and it was a QS1 store, old school QS1, DOS screen QS1. You call it, what's it called?
I think it was called RX Care Plus.
Okay. Yeah. It's an RX Care Plus store. And, it might as well been the walls inside of a pyramid, right? Because I got no idea what I'm doing in there, black screen. So, but I'd used NRX in the past while I was on location years before. And NRX is fairly intuitive. And so I went to you guys and I went to QS1 and I'd been on Pioneer. I'd convinced the previous owner that I'd worked for to convert to Pioneer years before. And I was really starting to figure out Pioneer, loved the reporting and all these things. And I could leverage Pioneer to make the store better, but I didn't have any money because I had just given every dollar that I had made to the guy that I bought the pharmacy from as my down payment. Right. So I had no money. And you guys were X amount of dollars for a conversion. And QS1 said, we'll do everything, all new computers, all this for like $3,000. Well, that was a no-brainer, right? Because you got no money. And so I converted to NRX. And you might not want me to tell this story now that you own QS1, but I can't help it. It's fantastic, right?
It'll be okay.
So we're up and running, and every day it's like I've broke up with an old girlfriend and I want her back because every day all I tell myself is, damn it, if I had Pioneer, I could do it just like this. I could do it just like this, right? And it's been about 6 months, and I'm really trying to build sync, and I'm missing the Pioneer sync features, and I'm missing the inventory management components of Pioneer, which is what I'm known for now, right? And so I go to this trade show. This is really happening. And I go to the QS1 booth, and this was back still during the QS1 heyday, right? When and in the South, if you were a pharmacy, you had QS1. And I walk into the booth, and they got the biggest, nicest booth in the whole show. You guys are like a little card table in front of a backdrop, right? This is great. And I walk into this booth, and I go to the center workstation, and they've got like 15 people working their booth. And I'm just ripping into this guy. I'm like, your system doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, let me show you something, because I was really struggling with their sync. And my I have someone with me, and I build this patient profile. I put them on all these meds. I'm trying to enroll, listen to them in sync. And I'm like, all right. It was like this very tense moment for everybody in this booth. I was like, so you're telling me that when I press this button, that this is going to happen? And they're all like, yes, that's what it does. And I hit the button, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And I said, and like half the salespeople, as soon as I hit the button, just turned and left the booth. They
just are all like, this isn't my customer.
An audience, because if you know me, I've got an audience, right? And so this happened. I leave there, and I walk straight down to the QS or to the Pioneer booth. I said, listen, I don't care if you send me an installer or not, just give me what I need. I need Pioneer now. And I closed with Pioneer that day, like we're walking out of that booth. And so that's how I got back to it, And you did send me a rep. He doesn't work with you anymore, but he only had one leg. Brandon was his name. He was Brandon was fantastic. We had the best time together. It was great. And we got the store up and running, and I never looked back. It was the smartest, best thing I ever did as far as like being able to run that store. And I felt kind of guilty about what I did to the folks in the booth down there, but maybe it got them to fix it. Hopefully it did. Right. So
probably.
So that's kind of, that's how we got started. That's how we got going. 18 months. No, see, I bought the first store 2015.
Okay.
So I had been when I bought my first store. After that, every independent that I talked to over the age of 50, I would tell them when I would get a transfer that when you get ready to retire or sell, I need to be your first call. That's actually very fruitful. That does pay off. I'll help you.
Okay.
I'll do whatever I can to help you between now and the day that you decide to sunset, you personally or your store, but I want to be there. So 3 years later in January, I bought my second store. A month later.
You said 3 years? So 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Okay.
By the second store. A month later, an owner that was a competitor to my first store came over and said, hey, listen, I'd like to, I'm interested in getting out of the business as well. So September same year, did the third store. That was a buy and operate. So not buy and operate, but a file buy. So they were across the street.
Buy.
I could throw a rock and hit their front door from my first store. So I was very fortunate that she joined me, and she was fantastic. Still one of the hardest working people I ever met in my life.
Great.
Just
a great story.
Didn't love the PBM business, right? Didn't love what was happening in pharmacy. Loved taking care of people, was known for it. She joined me along with several members of her team. And that was one of the best things that ever happened.
That's great.
A couple years later, we did a new start during COVID. Built the building, did everything, had
I remember that, Joe. I was like, Joe,
you're crazy, right?
Sure?
Yeah.
You were like, I got it.
Yeah. And I did. Yeah. And it was actually the perfect thing because, everybody talks about COVID. It was so bad, but we were testing 800 people a day across the 4 stores, across the 3. We didn't have 4. We had 3 at the time. And it actually bridged us. It got us going. We were in a community that needed the help. And in the end, it ended up being beautiful timing. At the same time, we, another one of those, hey, when you're ready to retire kind of thing, I got a call from another owner. Someone had passed and the files had to go somewhere today.
Oh, wow.
Like within a week. And so we did another file buy from another operation there. And then in 2023, another person that every time I talk to him, hey, when you're ready, she called, and that's the store that I'm sitting in today. So we've actually done 6 total acquisitions.
So it's like 6. Yeah. I was going to say 5 or 6. Okay.
But 4 are operating, and it's working out. It really, truly does. It's stressful sometimes, but I've learned that 1 is hard, 2 is almost impossible, 3 is a little bit easier, 4 is a little bit easier. And
how come?
It's counterintuitive because you're forced to stop micromanaging. You're forced to put faith and trust and belief in those that are running those individual locations. You also have the economies of scale to build a back office infrastructure, right? And so when you start taking the things off of your shoulder that really bog you down but don't provide you with value, you're now free to only fill your time with things that do provide value directly or indirectly back into your global organization, right? So what I've done that works is number one, you got to have a calendar, right? And I know you're in sales, so you probably live and die by your calendar just like I
kind of do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every day I wake up, it's my entire home screen on my phone is actually my calendar. And what am I doing today? My whole day is broken down into blocks of time. And I think I have 6 booking calendars of ways that people can get time
Book
with
time
me,
with you.
right? So
Okay.
I treat my own pharmacies like they are clients of mine in my consulting business, right? I know we're probably going to talk about Apex, but it was the smartest thing that I was doing, because my managers would recognize that they are charged with running the business. It's almost as if it's their store. And so when we get Joe for that hour block of time that we're going to focus on these things, and we're going to stay on task, we're going to address the issues that we have. We'll make small talk later and we'll have fun together and play and do all those kinds of things. But we're going to have an agenda so that we spend that time wisely, you know? And so I get those people book me. And then of course I'm a licensed Medicare agent. And so every Monday I'm in one store, Tuesday, the next Wednesday, the next Thursday, the next. And so each of those stores has a booking calendar for me so that I can meet patients that need to know what their Medicare options are inside of my pharmacy.
Okay.
So that also physically puts me in all of my locations at least once a week. And so part of that day is allocated to assessing that store, talking with that pick and that staff, doing any sort of personal professional development for them. And it makes me present when I'm there. When I wasn't doing this, it's really easy to let that store that you think has got it all figured out to kind of back too far away. Right.
Right.
And if you do that, you get too far away. By the time you come back in, some things they're too far gone. Right. And it's harder to recover, or it's been too long to correct a misstep or a mistake. And so by having that routine, it really keeps me present. I don't know what it'll look like when I get to store 38, I don't
100
do that.
Yeah.
But it's working now with the 4. And 2, because of that, because I do, and I think that everybody should think about this. If you own, if you own one store, put on your consulting hat, pretend that you're not the guy that's doing the day-to-day, and look at your store from 30 feet away.
Okay.
That when I think we really hit our stride when we did that. Because when it was me in the one store, I told you one store is hard. And it's because I was diving down into the roots, not even down into the grass. I'm down with the bugs, I'm down there pushing grubs out of the way so that I can see what the core of the problem was. And you'd get these blinders, and you'd get that tunnel vision that you wouldn't recognize this fact that, that whole corner of your building is on fire over there because you're worried about that one RX number and you're so focused on that. And I think that's where people go wrong. When I could micromanage that one store. That second store, I did it, and I nearly died trying to do it.
That's the one that'll kill you, because you're trying to do the same thing you're doing at store 1.
You haven't been
and
forced.
There's only so many hours in the day to do it, and it's just enough probably amount of work that you could probably pull it off.
You can.
You just won't have a life otherwise.
If you don't sleep and you neglect everything else in your life, you can do it, right? And it's that was an expensive mistake for me, but I did. Yes. I did that. Store 3, it is overnight. It's impossible. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's a forcing function.
It does.
For that.
It does.
Yep.
And 2, what you have to realize, and I have a good friend that runs a top-notch first-class operation. He's got one store. He does a phenomenal job, okay? He tells me he can never have more than one because he can't see letting go that much, right? And he's right. His personality suits, and he doesn't really need another one because the thing he has is just beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So what I tell him is if you ever wanted to do it, if he's ever going to do it, you have to learn that in the short run, 80 in regards to most parts of the business, 80% has to be good enough. And what I mean by that is if that person can do it 80% as well as you can, you got to give it to them. Now you want to keep educating and you want to keep bringing them up so that they're closer to 100. And then in some cases, you want them to do it better than you could. In all cases, technically, you want them to do it better.
Yeah, you would love to.
Yeah, but
and in some ways, they mature into that. They grow into being able to do certain things.
Well, there are parts of my business that staff members do it way better than I do. When you have this shotgun mentality that I do, I lose interest in things after I figure them out.
Yeah,
I like to build the system, and I like to figure out all the problems, and I even like to try to beat the PBMs with workarounds and do all these things, and create the models that I do. But as soon as I've cracked it all and figured it all out and solved it, I'm now bored with it.
On to the next.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but you have staff members that if Joe builds the game board, right, and here are all the rules, here are all the pieces, now you just get to use this every day. That is perfect for them. That's what they want. Yeah. They don't want to figure it out, but they want to be the ones that are like, all right, oh, you think you're going to do that? I got you with this move. That kind of.
Yeah.
And that's why it works, So, but if I had to stay in there and just play that same game every day, I'd go insane.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's different types of folks there for that, for sure. That's a great analogy too of like, hey, some people are great understanding a system,
right,
and then operating within the system, and even like sometimes making tweaks and improvements, but just know how to get the best result out of the system. Is those are your rock stars you can build on.
No, absolutely. And I tell you right now, and I'm one of the biggest advocates in the country for tech development, right? So I have I think 7 or 8 pharmacists now, and some of the best, brightest people that I've ever met, right? But they're all wired to think pretty much the same way across all of them. There's a couple little nuances here and there amongst them. But if you can develop that tech that can play that game and you can let them do that's what you want to do. Because you want 80% of the problems to be fixed. I use the 80-20 rule all the time.
Yeah,
80% of those problems to be solved by your technicians before the pharmacist ever gets to it.
Ever has to get in.
Yeah. That pharmacist should be shaking hands, hugging ladies, and kissing babies, and making sure that the right drug is in the bottle. That's right. What should be happening. Or doing the patient consultation, or doing the things that only their license allows them to do, paired with personality. The technicians are personality on top of the rest of the program should be ran by them,
Yeah. So you talk, so a few things there, before we move on, in your stores. So as you're developing, I guess, your own vision, your own culture, you're also acquiring, you're kind of doing two things at once. You're acquiring businesses, trying to grow your own business for your own vision, but also you're starting to figure out the culture you want.
Yeah, I am.
And your approach to patients and all of that. So I know that's all pretty much fully baked now.
It is.
I guess what did you learn across that process with your own staff? And then how did you want to present yourselves to patients too?
You make it about a process, not about a person. That's the biggest thing. It's not, well, she does that and he does that. If you start doing that, you're going the wrong way, because he or she is going to take a day off, go on vacation, or God forbid, work somewhere else one day. Right.
Okay.
So you worry about staff development. You worried about getting the right people in the right seat on the bus. I know that's a very common phrase, but I can thank Amina for really hammering that into my head at one point or another. Right. Yeah. She's one of the best at that. So, we have programs now that 3 years ago, I was under the impression had to have a pharmacist, who is your most expensive employee, right? Now have technicians and cashiers that are doing those programs now and operating at a higher level of completion than the pharmacists were, because the pharmacists were too busy shaking hands, hugging ladies, kissing babies, and checking prescriptions, right?
Yeah.
We can take those cashiers and those technicians, and we can put those people in those roles. The key to it is, it's not what she does, it's what we do, and this is how we do it, right? We call it, they call it, amongst the stores, it's either called the MedSmart way, which is like our global brand that we use, or just the Joe way. I try to get away from that, but it's the MedSmart way. What I said this morning, they should be asking themselves, WWJD, what would Joe do? You know what I mean? That's what I want there, right? So, yeah. And I'll be honest, and I'm not trying to blow your head up, but Pioneer is actually key to this because of care actions and post edits.
Oh, cool.
So that is where WWJD comes in. When they're in a pharmacy and an opportunity presents itself, the technician that's been with you 2 months that has been working at a TCBY yogurt shop for the past 5 years is not going to recognize the opportunity, right? And so this is where micromanagement comes in for a lot of pharmacists. They think that I've worked in stores and I've helped clients where the pharmacist is doing the order entry, then they've got a tech that counts and puts in a bottle, and then they've got another pharmacist that is verifying, right?
Verifying.
At some stores, it's the same pharmacist doing order entry that is doing the verifying, which is terrifying. Because I've met the mistakes that I've made have been when I've done that, right? What's it called? Confirmation. Oh God, I can't remember the word. What is it?
Confirmation bias?
Confirmation bias. Exactly. I thought that's the way I saw it 15 minutes ago. So that's the way that it is now. I don't.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I put it in. That's
exactly. That's right. I did it. I'm not human. I'm perfect, right?
But in that store.
But so what we started doing is, and I'm losing track. I lost track of where.
No, you're.
So these owners, you're gonna establish these ways of doing things. You're gonna say, what would Joe do? And then you're going to build WWJD into the system, because she's been working at a yogurt shop for 5 years. She doesn't know that that's an opportunity. She doesn't know that that patient could also do this. She doesn't know that that payer would prefer this. She doesn't know that the standing orders in the state allow you to do this because that med mix indicates that that would benefit that patient, right?
Okay.
So you can't take Joe's decades of experience and put those into her head when she starts on day one. No amount of training is going to do that. But I can build all of that into the system that puts up a big blocking edit and says, stop, you should do this because this is an opportunity to better serve this patient, right? And then And so the whole thing is instead of me standing beside her and micromanaging her, I teach her that she needs to go with the flow of the system, that the thing that would best enable her to serve this patient in the best way, that system is going to now point her in that direction. Right. If you're on another system and the patient walks in and they get this crazy high dose of Humalog and you fill it, you lose $25, $30, $40 on it, and the patient goes out the door, you're standing over there grumbling. But if you use the state standing order for a glucagon pen that patient could definitely benefit from because they're on such high doses of Humalog, run it through the third party. It's a favorable drug for the patient. 9 times out of 10, they can get it for free, either through coupon or because it's a generic on their plan. You just turn that situation that next time you might cringe if they came in into a positive one because you made money on the claim. Right. Now, she would have never known to do that because the yogurt shop doesn't dispense glucagon. And I don't have to stand beside her anymore. I can do that. So that's a small example of the way that my stores are ran. So I can't be in 4 places at one time. So I enable the system to be the kind of gentle tap on the shoulder of, hey, this patient needs to be enrolled in sync. Hey, this drug should have a -1 reorder point. Hey, the standing order. Hey, did you know? Hey, you should do this. And initially, when it first starts out, they're following the nuances of the machine, of the system, and the taps on the shoulders to direct them.
Sure.
But what it does though is it makes them think. They now start to process that add-ons are a good thing, that helping to create a more well-rounded approach to care are good things. There's care actions down front for OTC recommendations where the cashiers are involved in these kinds of things, like your probiotic or your nutritional support supplements, et cetera. I mean, there's a million different ways that you don't have to be standing beside them anymore to be efficient and to really help that patient to have the best experience possible because the system can cue all of those things.
Yeah. No, also, like you touched on it, it also trains your staff on what would Joe do while the system's doing it. So you're 100% right. You're obviously get to, I'll just say, systematize your own like initiatives in the pharmacy to make sure either patients are taken care of, the store's profitable, et cetera. But it's also at the same time a heads up training module in workflow for you that to keep them thinking about the right thing.
Exactly. I mean, when I first started and every pharmacy I ever worked in before, they did these same things, but there was a yellow Post-it on the side of the monitor.
All of those were done by Post-its, right?
Right.
Or in someone's head.
And you had probably you had one of 6 staff members that knew to do that. And then it got done 5% of the time, versus if it's a hard stop, now you got to look at your numbers of how much you're going to be able to accomplish now, because they got to deal with it. There it is in front of them. And if if they're ignoring them, that's a whole nother training conversation that you get to have with them.
That's different. And you've got documentation that's what's being done.
Exactly.
Right? Like it's just like I love your take. I haven't really heard it framed the way you framed it, and I think it's great from obviously systematizing what you want happening in the pharmacy, but using it as a training aid is huge. So
no, I think it's the single biggest thing that you guys offer, even if you don't realize it, is the ability.
I
put that logic.
We know the power. The power users always say that, right? Like the power users are where I would put you in the power user /plus category of that. And so, man, those are the folks. And also those are the folks I listen to probably doing the best. I don't mean to make this all about profits and dollars, but these are businesses that have to run on that.
Probably doing word. Yeah. If you're not making profit, you might as well be doing something else.
I look at that as like when I listen to folks and I get to have those conversations around how they're doing from that perspective. The ones doing really well and figuring it out still are using it that way.
This is the truth though. First you got to understand everything, right? You need to understand the payer landscape. You need to understand the buy and sell side, right? So what am I paying for things? How much am I being paid for things? You start to figure those things out. Then you start to look at these secondary initiatives, right? And in the past, my secondary initiatives, like the kind of things I just described, they used to be the cream on the top of the cake.
Yeah.
So they were the really good bonus type initiatives that we ran. Truth be told, in the last couple of years, those bonus programs were what's been keeping us in a good spot, right?
Yeah, the froth's no longer the froth.
Right. It's
part of the drink now,
right?
Yeah. And
so unfortunately, if you're still doing things the way you did them 5 years ago, with your tunnel vision, staring at the amber vial in front of you, and you don't have this other stuff, those are the stores that I hate to say are having the cash flow issues. They're having the problems. They're considering next steps, those sorts of things, because they never stepped the 30 feet back to see how they could build the froth, how they could, do the extras. And so what ends up happening, and I swear this is true, this has been true my entire career as a pharmacy owner, is you figure these things out, you figure out where the bonuses lie, you figure out the best ways to do it, and then you don't need to necessarily share those things with the staff. You don't need to necessarily say, we do this because we make more money when we do this.
Yeah, right.
You have to look at it from the clinical standpoint, or the customer service standpoint, or the patient outcome or patient care standpoint, right? Because that is truly what's best for them, for that patient. And then so the job satisfaction comes in the sense that the staff member knows that they're taking better care of the customer, of the patient. They're going to have a better outcome. The money just comes. It comes because those other things occur. Now, they have to be self-aware. It doesn't mean that we can afford to lose $100 on every GLP-1 because they know that patient would be happier if they lost weight. That's not the same thing, right? I mean, there's got to be guardrails, and again, that's where the stops and blocks in the system come to play. But at the same time, we are looking to make sure that we're doing the best by that patient that we can. The growth, the money, the profits, that all comes as a result of what we did up front. And it's happened every time.
That makes total sense. I don't want to leave their store yet and your stores yet without asking you. You mentioned you 12X to store.
Yeah.
Your first store.
Yeah.
I guess, what was your mentality, or what was your vision around this is how we're going to show up for patients and to 12x a store is a pretty rare occurrence.
So it's fun though. God, it's fun.
Yeah.
So you buy the store, and the store had a very laid back mentality. We'll say it was a reactive pharmacy, and not to pick on anybody, but it was like probably 75% of the pharmacies across the country. The work started when the prescription showed up.
Right. Okay.
Right. And that was just the way things that were done. That's the way things were done. And I've seen their old P&Ls. That's all they had to do. Right?
Yeah. No, like back in the day, like from a dollars and cents perspective, you could make that work.
Exactly.
You could make that work really well.
The store had been in operation. The store, under two different names, has been in business for 115 years. So it's been around a long time, right? And so that was the way that it was ran, and that worked. And I've seen the P&Ls, and I would have done the exact same thing if I had those margins back then. I wouldn't have worked as hard as I work now. And so when I came in, and it was like there was no sync, manual inventory, nothing was correct in the system, like 75% of the pharmacies in the country, unfortunately. Yep. And so first we fixed inventory. Then once we got Pioneer, we started building a good sync program. Before that, I had a big desktop calendar, and I wrote the patient's name on the desktop calendar on the next day of the month when I was going to fill it. That was what,
like the ones that are like this for people who are just listening. They're like, I'm holding my arms out wide. Like one of those real big ones like this. Okay.
The really big ones.
All right.
I would write the supplier item number of the expensive drugs that I was going to need in that next statement period on the first day of the statement period. So I would draw a line down the middle of the calendar day, and on the left it was the items that I needed to order that day, so that I would dispense them in the same statement period.
The same statement period.
And then I would write the patient's name and date of birth on the box that I was going to process their prescription. Right. So I understood cash flow then, thankfully.
Yeah, I was going to say preserving cash flow.
Exactly.
Yep.
I didn't have my inventory model because of, unfortunately, the software I was using at the time. I already told you that it wasn't as sophisticated as Pioneer. Pioneer came in, everything went to -1, everybody went into sync, right? And that's what we did, and now it was all automated. And so sync was the number one thing that we did out of the gate to grow. Behind that, and I'm not trying to, my personality was different than the previous owner's personality. I was coming out from behind the counter, and I have a wonderful cashier up front that's been in this. I guess she's cashier, but really she's like my second mother. She's my work mother, and she'd been there for more than 30 years, and she was really good about introducing me to everyone.
Oh, that's great.
So you go out behind the counter, you get the hug in, you get the handshake in, you give the kid the free ice cream, you do all those kinds of things, and then 2 days later they're back with the aunt, the grandmother, the cousin, the sister, the brother, and that's how it started. And it was, he'll take care of you no matter what. Like, he will get it done.
You had a vision of they're going to know who Joe Williams is. They're going to know their pharmacist. Yeah. Yep. You're going to build a brand for Joe, which you'll then leverage for the pharmacy itself.
So the first
within the community.
The first brand was definitely me personally. And so I think, I had a small staff. It was just me and Brenda, and then I would have a part-timer that would help me. And so that was the first brand. Brenda was already her own brand. Like, if you came in that store, you lived in that town, you knew Brenda.
the first influencer in the community.
Definitely, she still is to this day. Still, I've owned that store now for 10 years, and there's still patients that won't even talk to me. They only talk to Brenda. And I just, and I'm yes, ma'am, no problem. And I don't argue. I don't push back. I got upset about it the first couple of times, and then I was smart enough to be like, that's a gift. Just let that happen.
Yeah, store 2, store 3. You're like, I need an army of Brendas.
Right? I need an army of Brendas. But so the first brand was really, I was trying to build this brand that was me, and that worked. That got us going. And then the next big step was delivery. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I'm glad you said there's not really a cap on this thing. So
no, there's not a cap on time. We're good. Like, I don't have an appointment for another hour and a half, so I'm okay.
Well, you might have to cancel that one. But here's what I was going to say. Right. So the next thing we did was delivery. No other pharmacies in our market did delivery, and I want to tell you this really cool story. So I at the time I drove a Honda Civic. That was my car. I bought it when I started going to pharmacy, or when I started undergrad to do the prereqs for pharmacy school. So like back in 2015, 16, I bought this little Honda Civic, and so that was my personal car, but I went and I had these magnets made that would fit on the door. So they're like, 2 feet wide, 30 inches wide by about a foot tall, stuck them on both sides. And I remember I even got the newspaper to come out and do a little piece on delivery and take a picture of me standing beside this car. I still have those newspapers. And I would get off work and then I would deliver until I was done every night. So I would go to work at 9. I'd get off at 6 or 6:30 whenever I leave the store, and then I'd deliver until 9 o'clock at night because I'm going to build this brand. We're going to be the people that are going to make sure you get what you need. And I wasn't really sure that this made sense and it was going to work out. And I was trying to figure out, how to budget and how to make this whole thing work. Right. So let me tell you this, 2 things happened. And in my whole career, things like this have happened, but it's like, I know that I'm supposed to deliver. And here's why, 2 different reasons. Number one day, I had a high school kid that was delivering for me, college kid, I'm sorry. And we live on Interstate 95, major interstate on the Eastern Seaboard, right?
Yep.
He's going down to the next town that is 8 miles away down Interstate 95, and he lost one of my magnets. The passenger side magnet blew off of the car. Okay, just randomly down the interstate. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks later, a month later, don't remember what. I'm driving home, and I'm driving. I had a little Toyota pickup. And I'm driving home in my Toyota, and there are 3 cars on the side of the road, and it's on a Wednesday night. I remember this, and it's all women, and they're trying to change a tire. So I pulled over and I backed all the way back down the interstate, and I just jumped right in, like just took over. And I'm changing the tire, and I'm down there, and I'm on my knees in front of the car, and I think I was putting the tire back on, and one of the ladies said, God, you're good at that. You must work at a tire shop. And I said, no, ma'am. She must be a mechanic, I think. I said, no, ma'am, I'm actually a pharmacist. I work at Bristol Drugs, and they're about to get my elevator pitch on why they should be transferring all their meds.
Right. You're about to lead in.
Yeah, we're getting it's in there, right? I'm about to hand you business cards and a free ice cream coupon and all this stuff. And one of the girls said, well, then this must be yours. And I didn't really pay any attention to her, and I kept going. And then she says, hey, this must be yours. And I turned around, and 2 feet behind me, she was standing there holding that magnet.
Oh, right on.
8 miles. And I was on my knees. This gives me chill bumps every time I think about this story. I was on my knees 2 feet away from a sign that was lost a month before in an 8-mile stretch of interstate. Mm-hmm. And she held that up. And honest to God, I'm not ashamed to say it. We all cried. Everybody, because they were all going to church. They were in all their church things. These were very, very church going people. And like, we all cried because that was supposed to happen. There is nothing else that will put you within 2 feet of something over an 8-mile stretch. It's just, statistically, it's got to be almost impossible. It's like winning the lottery, getting struck by lightning, And so I was like, oh my God. So that magnet is inside of that store still stuck to the safe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I need to give it a shout out.
Literally, you're signed to be doing this. Literally.
That was step 1.
Right. Yeah.
Same year, I go to the North Carolina Mutual Trade Show and I won a car.
What?
I won a car.
You won a car?
I won a car that is now, or was our first.
Never been it.
I won our first legitimate delivery car that I had vinyl wrapped, and I did all those things.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's like, people think about delivery as just this convenience, but I'm supposed to deliver. Mm-hmm. I'm just supposed to, because the whole magnet thing, number one, still makes me tear up and my hair on my neck stand up. And then you win a car a few months later when you're trying to figure out how do I rationalize the expenditure of a true dedicated delivery vehicle. And so you win it and it costs you nothing.
Yeah. Like,
so
okay. Yeah. I don't, don't fight it. Don't fight it, right?
and so the last thing that, if you want to talk about how we got to 10X, we have what we call Patient X. 2 things happen. I'll say just his first name because I love this guy. His name's Calvin. Calvin was a patient of ours that had not been the most compliant patient. Okay, and he had been hospitalized, and when he was hospitalized, the hospital sent his meds to the hospital pharmacy to fill at discharge. Okay. He'd had some TIAs, the transit ischemic attacks, mini strokes. And so they sent all of his meds to the outpatient hospital that they did send home with him, and they gave him 11 refills. So nobody wrote any more prescriptions. And Calvin was one of those people that would just walk into the pharmacy and say, give me my medicine. And so we kept filling what we thought was Calvin's meds, not knowing about the hospitalization, right? We got no idea all these other meds had been added and changed and all these kinds of things. And so at the time, we were a part of an organization called CCNC that was a precursor to PESN.
Yeah, a lot of people that probably listen to this probably still remember CCNC.
Yeah, so their system was not the easiest system to navigate. And so unbeknownst to us, a month after his discharge, we were doing training on a Saturday for that program because we couldn't wrap our heads around it. And I said, they were like, well, just pick a patient. And I randomly picked him. I don't know why. I randomly picked him. And I could see those meds that were filled the month before at that outpatient pharmacy. And one of them was a blood thinner. And he wasn't on a blood thinner. And I'm like, oh my God, what's this all about? You know, what's happening here? Reached out to the physician the following Monday, no response. That Friday, I'm following up, and this all happened. Again, this is kind of like the magnet. As I'm sending the second request of information on this to that prescriber, in walks his significant other with a stack of paper this thick. Now he'd had a major stroke. He took the meds. No, he never took the meds, came back in, got his meds from us, and only took the meds that we filled for him.
Oh.
And so he'd now had a major stroke because he wasn't on a blood thinner. And so so we fill all the meds. He'd had the stroke. He couldn't communicate, but he was still thinking. He just couldn't really communicate what he was saying. So we fill all the meds in bottles. He goes home, or she goes home. The girlfriend takes the meds. He comes back with her in an hour, and he is extremely angry, but he can't say what he's upset about. And she won't let him have the meds because she's afraid that he's not going to take them right because he can't articulate what's on the label. And she's like, he's refusing to let me help him. He's doing this. You know, he's kind of a stubborn guy. And I said, okay, I got an idea. So I go and I do arts and crafts. I go over and I grab like 3 different pieces of colored paper. And then I made a key that this color was the rising sun with the rooster crowing. So look at this picture and take
the morning stuff
that are that color, right?
Yeah.
And so this was my first patient adherence packaging method. Okay. I did this with this paper because I didn't have any multi-dose blisters or anything like that in my store at the time. But I bought myself 30 days to solve this problem. And so I did that. I put him into multi-dose blisters the next time that he came in because the bottle method was not going to work long-term, right?
Right.
And it solved the problem. Okay. He couldn't read the bottle, but he could pop that yellow pouch open that had those morning meds in him. And we started from there. And then I didn't see the opportunity as far as what I could do to help others at the time. It's like I said earlier, I'm focused on the best outcome for this guy in front of me right now. Right. And I did that. And then somebody else saw him pick it up and said, what's that? And we did that. And then somebody else, and then somebody else, and somebody else. And then we got about 50 people who were in packaging. And then one day I'm at the beach in a shopping mall. My then wife is shopping, and I bump into a guy that I grew up with, and his wife is shopping, and we're both sitting on the bench in the middle of the mall like old men do. And he says, what are you doing now? I said, well, I'm a pharmacist, blah, blah, blah. I said, what are you doing now? He said, I run a community paramedic program for this hospital system. And then I wrapped my arm around him and pulled him in real close. And I said, well, let me tell you how I can help you.
Yeah.
And then they referred about 300 patients to us as part of that community paramedic program for all their high-risk discharges over the next few months. And from there, that program just took off. And we became synonymous with your high-risk patients, your complicated patients. issues with transportation, issues with medication non-compliance, we became the place that you sent those patients to because we wouldn't stop until we solved the problem. And then when you would enroll that high-risk discharge, the other 4 people in the house, since you were coming to the house anyway, will you do my medicine as well? And then it just started snowballing. And it all started because one guy needed us to solve the problem for him, and then everything else just came along with it.
Wow. So that's how we 10x or 12x really a store. Wow, that's cool. It's rewarding work too.
No, it is.
Right?
I'm telling you, that's the good thing.
God.
You can't feel bad about any of it. None of it makes you feel sleazy. None of it makes you feel dirty because everybody wins.
Yeah.
The hospital wins because they don't get readmitted. The PBMs and I hate to even make them happy, but the PBMs and the insurance companies win because now we've reduced the total cost of care. We've made their bottom line better. The patient is happier because they're independent and they're getting their meds. We're delivering it to them, so the family's happy because they have less weight on their shoulders. The pharmacy's happy because we have more compliant patients and additional fields and a more well-rounded method of care. Everybody wins, and here we are, indirectly, your bottom line is affected and it's improved.
Yeah. In a positive way. You're right. Yeah. All of those things too. That MedSync approach and that packaging approach, like, I mean, everyone already knows you can, like, it's cash flow, it's inventory control. It's all of the things that are not as fun as a pharmacist to think about that it forces you to do.
It's actually the most fun thing for me to think about, but okay, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. All right. So we'll get out of the, I guess, the 4 walls a little bit here. You also you're probably one of a lot of people. I know you guys are one of the most available people I know, Joe. And I know that comes at a cost. It does probably.
Yeah, it does. But it can be a little bit stressful. And I don't doubt that occasionally I will let someone down because, there is a lot of competition for time, but I do my best. Yeah.
Yeah. You have, you and Ben Jolly work together with Apex Consulting.
That's right.
You guys help a ton of folks, whether it's navigating payer landscape, like you talked about, or sync and control, man. Like, I just wanted to give you a second to talk through in that vein of getting to see so many operations. Right. What's, I guess, one thing a pharmacist, or not even one thing, what are some of the things that you see pharmacies doing that what you can spot immediately when you walk in and you go, man, I can help you out with that?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. So, and you can, one of my favorite things was when I do on sites. So when I go and I visit a store, as soon as you cross the threshold, you can feel the store. And I'm not the only one that's done.
Joe, I don't know if everyone can do that, though, by the way. Just FYI.
You can if you stop and you thought about it, right? So what you ask yourself is if this were my store, what would I want to happen? Am I greeted? Is it clean? Is it well stocked? Is it straight? Is it organized? Is it well lit? Does it smell like cigarettes? Seriously, you can feel all of those things, right? Yeah. And so, when I talk to clients, I've actually, last few days, I've been really, really, really busy, helping a lot of different people. They're always like, what do I do first? I was like, clean your store. Yeah. Clean your store. The first thing you do, clean the store. Is it clean? Would you eat off of the shelves where the drugs are? If you go over and you ran your hand across the shelves out front, would your hand be gray to dust? And
show up with a white glove.
Oh, yeah, no, white glove. I'm not even trying to get the white glove. I'm trying to get if I blew with a cloud of smoke come up,
Got it.
And there's not a lot of people that can say, yeah, my store is clean. There's not, and I don't care how busy you think you are. There's times when they're leaning over there at the end of the day. And so if you've ever heard the old line, if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean.
You got time to clean. Yeah. My grandpa used to give me that one all the time.
All of my stores have a to-do list. Every day, these sections of the stores have to be clean. Divide and conquer. Get it done. Clean the store, because a clean store is going to contribute to a happier, healthier company culture, right? Mm. I don't really dive into the culture conversations. There's Travis and others that are way better, way smarter, and have a much knowledge on how to change those things. I just focus on how do the fundamentals of operations affect culture, right? So The biggest things that I tell them is start by cleaning your store. Don't display your negativity, no matter what your bank account looks like, to the remainder of your staff. Okay. If you were on a battlefield and the general looked terrified, how likely are you going to be to charge the next machine gun turret? You're not.
Right.
You think the battle is already lost, right? Don't show them that you're stressed and you're scared. Talk to them about a tactile solution, how we're going to combat these things and how we're going to fix them. Don't say it's doom and gloom, the world is going to end next week, okay? Because if you do, I promise you, if you hop on Indeed or any other job site, they got applications out there. They're putting their resume and putting themselves out there because they think the ship they're on is sinking, okay? So clean it up, change the company culture, become positive. And then the third thing, and this is in the vein of culture, and I talk about this on stage, or hell, if you give me 15 minutes to talk to you, I'll talk about this. We talk out of both sides of our mouth as pharmacists, right? You're going to tell your technicians and your cashiers and the rest of your staff that every prescription that we dispense has to be exact. It has to be absolutely perfect for audit purposes, for clinical reasons, what the doctor wrote, etc. But then you'll say on the other side of your mouth that inventory really doesn't matter. Oh, it's fine. Oof. No, those our balance on hands or our quantity on hands, they don't have to be correct. It's okay. We don't do that here. Just use the yellow legal pad and pull the stickers. You know, we talk out of both sides of our mouth. You can't have a culture of exactness when the biggest cost center of your business doesn't really matter, right? If you have to have a culture of exactness from the front door to the back door. If you're going to, if you tell them that inventory doesn't matter, well, does the daily to-do list matter? Does grabbing patient signatures at delivery or at checkout matter? Does giving the patient exact change matter? No. You see what I'm saying? You can't pick and choose what we are going to do the right way. It's got to be inside of the four walls for your operation. This is how we operate. Not just in certain veins of our lines of business or in certain areas of practice. You have to have a culture of accuracy. And so once you adopt that, and once you really push home the fact that we're going to do everything to the same level, that we're going to dispense medications, things get easier, things get simpler. The staff member is no longer making the decision as to whether or not that's really important, because they know that it's important.
Because it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like it's prescriptive in that way.
I'm telling you, and you've been doing this as longer than I have, and you go into stores and you know what I'm saying. The store does not feel good.
I used to have there's another, I don't know if it was Joe Moose, or I can't remember who it was. Early on, I was at a pharmacy and they were very big on almost exactly what you were talking about. It was before really systems did all the things that you were talking about too. That could have been Bob. I can't remember. But it was very much a clean store leads to clean queues. Clean queues lead to a clean, you know what I mean? Like he had a whole thing, like a 3 or 4 part thing there. I don't remember it all, but I was just like,
no, that's on the money. You know, and you talk about queues. Like I'll go into stores and they have edited the descriptions of their drugs because that drug is in the robot, right? So we used to put 1 asterisk, but now we put 2, or now we put 3 because we didn't really clean up the 1. So we just added another one to make it more accurate, right?
Yeah, right.
Instead of like a device bin, like I can do in Pioneer, right? So we see people that they will manually create things.
Yeah, they'll create a whole process.
A whole process around a manual process that in 1 month now means nothing because there's not a really efficient way to manage it, right? And so this, again, you're talking about systems. This is where like, no, we don't do that. We don't put dollar signs. We don't do this. We don't do asterisks. We only do this. I have done on-sites where the entire time I was there, I would have to build some custom searches that it would pull out all of those little things that they would put in descriptions. And the entire day, a staff member was responsible for going in and removing all of those things that no longer held any value. And then you create a more efficient method of management. But it's like you say, you have to have a system, and a system is only good if it can be easily maintained and it can be easily audited, right? If you don't have a way of checking in on it and making sure that it's still fresh and alive. You have to treat it like a living, breathing thing, right? Is it being maintained? Is it accurate? If you can't do those things, you should never put it into place, because you're sending a signal to your staff that you're going to do stuff that's really not important after a month. So, don't put your heart into what we're building here, because in a month he's not even going to ask about it, or it's not going to make any sense. That's that beginning with the end in mind, that I love to use all the time.
Okay. All right. What's the best way? So I'm going to move on to Medicare enrollment, but before I do that, what's the best way to let's plug the website or whatever. What's the best way to get a hold of you and Benjamin? God, and we'll drop it in the show notes as well. If
I forgot that's what we were talking about. So yeah. So sorry. If
you know Joe long enough, that's not the first time you said this on this podcast yet. I don't know.
There's people in my life that are responsible for grabbing me and pulling me back into the conversation, right? So Apex Pharmacy Consulting is the website.
Okay.
I want to say that if you go to the services tab, there's some various services that are very popular, and that's why we generally would block those things out. But there's also, help me with something else. That's the office hours block. And we put that in there because, we've helped over 1,000 clients between the two of us. And while pharmacies are very similar, like a pharmacy in Georgia can be really similar in operation to somebody in Oregon at the end of the day, right? They have a lot of the same problems, but at the same time, there can be some nuances there. And maybe your problem doesn't fit into one of our services boxes. One of the things that we love to do the most is you to come in there with this, radical idea or with this program you want to build, and you're not sure how you can create a system around it or how you can really understand the details. We've also considered tracks. We've called them leveler courses. Your system, Pioneer, I do love it. And I thank you for calling me a super user, but most people are only using about 10% of your software. There is so much more that they can get out of that software, and they can derive so much more value from it. So any time I help someone, I'll spend about the first 20, 30 minutes on a long call of leveling them, of bringing them up so that they better understand some of the things that Will would do at a trade show, where he does like the new features and tips and tricks, which is a fantastic course if you can ever catch it. We do those things out of the gate because I say that we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. I want you to be able to wrap your head around what the system can do, so that next time you need to figure something out, you don't necessarily have to book me. You know where to look, and how to build the view or searches or audits to find those things. But if you want to get us to help you, you go to apexpharmacyconsulting.com. There's booking links across the page. Ben and I are both, readily available to help and serve and do whatever, whether it's a virtual visit or even an on-site, if you want us to come in and point out problems that you don't even know you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Medicare enrollment. Let's talk about that.
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you're doing it. I think Ben's doing it too. I think other folks are trying to learn as much about it as possible. So, give us your take.
I used to say, before I was a licensed agent, I used to say that Medicare open enrollment is the most impactful thing that you can do to your pharmacy. As a licensed agent, I can say that is exponentially more true. Okay. So, I've always used software to help me to quickly help patients with Medicare comparisons, right? I'm really fortunate that early on, I learned a lot about Advantage plans in addition to your typical PDP, Part D drug plan only comparisons. I did that before I was a licensed agent, understanding the medical Advantage world and all of the doors and benefits that it opens up for patients and for pharmacy, right? And so we've been doing these things for years with great outcome, great results, super, super strong patient feedback, where, on a drug plan, you might save them, $700 used to be the old rule, but I've seen converting from a supplement like a Part G or a Part F supplement and plus a Part D drug plan over to an Advantage, where I've saved patients $3,000-$4,000 a year. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so what it comes back to, and if you, like I said, you listen to me talk for 15 minutes, I'll talk about big picture thinking. So you've saved this patient money. you put them into a more favorable plan for them. And generally speaking, it's a more favorable plan for the pharmacy is what I've discovered, right? Because you're looking for the win-win opportunities, right? You've reduced their risk. You've gotten them all these extra benefits that they weren't getting in their previous plan, and they become forever grateful because you've added an added layer of trust that they bestow upon you, right? So not only because they already trust you if they're going to let you fill their meds, right? Because that's life or death, right? And so, well, if they would trust you with the life or death, the situation of giving them the correct medication, adding on that you can help them with this with the proper amount of knowledge is easy. It's an easy benefit for them because that you've already established a trust. So, my first year as a licensed agent was last year. Extremely fruitful for myself and the patients. I learned that much more through that licensure process about how to when I was learning to become an agent, I also learned things and actually debunked myths that I believed for years about Medicare. There were things.
Oh, really?
Yes. There were things that I told patients I found out that were wrong. I'd been told that by someone in my past, whether it was an agent or I saw it on a webinar or something like that. And it could have been true at the time that I was told, but I was hanging on to that knowledge and it was no longer the case if it ever was. And so as I was going through, the tutorials and things, it was very eye-opening. And I'd always kind of pigeonholed myself into PDPs and MAPDs. I didn't really look at the supplement world a whole lot because that was strictly on the health side. It didn't really involve the pharmacy and I was kind of weary of it. And so now, after the licensure process, I'm much more equipped to have the conversation about all of the different products that a patient can have. And so it's been extremely rewarding, especially when you can debunk those myths that those patients have themselves. Many of them think that, well, I signed up for the best plan when I turned 65. Now they're 83 years old. They're spending $4,000, $5,000 a year in monthly premiums, right? And they could be on a plan that would be provided to them for free, and the max out of pocket is only $3,500. So they could have a catastrophic year and spend $1,500 less in total healthcare cost. Plus all their meds are free now on this new plan that you've put them on, where they were spending, $4,000, $5,000 in supplement premiums, plus paying for a drug plan, plus paying for drugs at the pharmacy in addition. Now you've shrunk all that down to zero, plus a pay-as-you-go methodology with an Advantage plan. And they'll come back to you. And they will tell you how grateful they are. I hadn't seen a dentist in 3 years until you put me on an Advantage plan, and now I get $3,000 in dental benefits. So I keep talking about Advantage because there's pharmacies across the country that are probably going to watch this that are terrified of Advantage plans. They only want to stay in their world of PDPs. And there are some good PDP options out there, but if you really want to have a solid positive impact on your patients, you need to have a good firm grasp on those Advantage plans and what's out there. And then please clean up your Medicare third parties inside of your system so that you know the difference. If it still says Medco, that doesn't exist anymore, by the way, and you have no idea if that is a commercial or a Medicare or a Medicaid or if it's a PDP or if it's an MAPD, fix that. Ben will help you.
Yeah.
Ben will help you.
Yeah.
You can do it in an hour.
Yeah, Ben's your guy. He could do that in his sleep.
Yeah.
I think he's training an AI agent right now.
Oh God, that would be beautiful. That would be so beautiful. But no, I mean, because again, we're talking about full circle. If you talk to any of the movers and shakers or the thought leaders or whatever you want to call them, in our industry or any industry across the country, they're all big picture thinkers, right? They don't get me wrong. They make sure that the med is correct, right pill, right bottle, right patient. But at the same time, they're doing like me and they're thinking about who are they contracted with? What plans are we going to help patients enroll in? What programs can we put them in? You have to think about this. It's time for pharmacies to start drawing a line in the sand. And the line is not I'm going to stop filling GLP-1s. Okay. If you talk to
Okay.
anybody, that's everybody. Well, I'm not filling any more GLP-1s. Okay. Yeah, that's a step. That's a step in the right direction. That's part of it. But, have you considered the plan options? Are you doing long-term care at home? Have you looked into compounding? Have you done this? Have you done that? What people tend to do instead of saying not this, but that is just no. When you just say no and you stop, you've lost a wonderful opportunity. Instead, look at that interaction as an opportunity to pivot, educate, change, alter the course, whatever you want to call it, right? So many of you, listen to me. I'm on stage right now. So,
my mom watches every week.
Oh, God,
so
fantastic. There's PBMs out there that that you can't afford to fill a single prescription for them, right?
Yeah.
And there's several of them probably, and depending on your marketplace,
definitely
right?
more than one.
So what do you do about that? Do you keep turning them away? Do you keep telling them that you're out of stock? I mean, what do you do? Well, you can't do this in all cases, but when you can, why can't you have the conversation about an alternative plan? Or maybe you want to do a complete overhaul and you want to direct contract, and you're only going to direct contract with the pharmacy benefit managers that pay your pharmacy a sustainable rate. And then you want to become a licensed agent. So when open enrollment or any other window of time comes along, you can say to that patient, first question I want to ask you is do you want to stay with this pharmacy? And they say, well, of course I do. We'll say, good. Then we're only going to talk about plans that we're going to be accepting next calendar year. All right. So this is big picture thinking, right? So we know of the plans that are left there that those are the plans that the pharmacy is sustainable under. We're going to make sure that we put the patient in the absolute best plan for them of those to get the most additional benefits that we can. Now you have a threefold win. 9 times out of 10, the plan that you've put that patient in is a better plan because they probably haven't reviewed their Medicare opportunity or Medicare options for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
2, the pharmacy's better off because you handpicked the plans that you were going to do business with. And then 3, if you were a licensed agent, you'll also be rewarded on that side. That is big picture thinking. That is the pathway to success. Now, is that easy? No. But it's easier than starting over. It's easier than filling out that one pager where Walgreens is going to tell you what your livelihood is worth. It's easier than not being able to donate to the local softball teams and little league games and all the other stuff. It's easier than doing those things. And it's absolutely possible. There's nothing that can stop you from doing it.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'm getting licensed. I'm kidding. But no, that's good. No, it's good. No, I look at this and I go, so my parents just started on Medicare.
Here, I'll give you my number. They can call me.
No, honestly, no idea what that, honestly, there's really not a ton of easily accessible help with that. They're just,
don't you have my cell phone? Don't you have my cell phone?
I do.
Okay, good.
I do. But so it's just one of those things where if you had a destination that you knew and trusted that could, would make themselves available to help, almost everybody will take that up. And maybe you don't need it every year. Totally get it.
No, you do.
You
gotta do it every year. You do.
Okay. Thanks for correcting me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Because here's what happens. Here's what happens. If you're still on that plan from 3 years ago, the plan could have dropped a new plan that is 5 times better. They don't grandfather you over if that old.
No, that's true. They don't automatically move you. They don't shift you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I've seen patients where over-the-counter benefits may increase by $50 just from going from plan A to plan B. Okay. So you're talking $600 a year for sitting down with you for 30 minutes.
Now it's such a gap fill too. You think about it, in the commercial world, they all have HR benefits, people typically that can walk them through most things. It's just we have one, I can literally reach out to our HR benefits person button. And they can tell me exactly what's what.
Right.
Once you graduate into that age, man, it's gone for the most part.
Exactly.
It's just,
and then who do you
such
trust?
a great gap fill.
You're getting this much mail every day, 3 months before you turn 65. And then in open
100%.
enrollment, it's 3 times that high. You're getting random phone calls. My grandmother will be 98 in October. Okay. And I enrolled her in what was the ideal plan for her in our market. Okay. And reimbursement cost, none of that stuff really matters for my grandmother because I take care of everything for her. So it's not a big deal. Right. And so I enrolled her in the ideal plan. January, we're running her meds and she's in a totally different plan. And I call her and she has no idea. So I asked my uncle, I'm like, what happened? Yes, somebody called and she gave him her Medicare number and they changed her plan. She didn't even know she had done it. You know, she didn't even know she did it. She's a 98-year-old trusting woman. I was like, well, we're going to fix that. And then you need to take all those cards away from her and tell her never to talk to anybody else on the phone, you know? But that stuff happens. There's pariahs. Those people don't have her best interest in mind. She doesn't even know who that person was. Right? Yeah. Versus walking into the local independent pharmacy that is delivering to you, that does sponsor your grandson's little league team. It's a whole different relationship than that. Yeah. The patients need an option of a place that they can trust. And I'm telling you right now, if it's done the right way, everybody wins. You know, everybody.
No, it's good. It's good. Well, shoot, man, we burned only an hour and a half ish. That's good. That's good.
Oh my God.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. The last thing I wanted to say though, is you did just wrap up teaching with NCPA, I believe, right?
Yeah. We did the core program. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they did it with Scott Pace. There's a bunch of a handful of just super smart people.
Don't tell him I said he was smart, but yeah, he really is. He really is. He's a strong guy. I talked to Scott about a lot of different stuff. He's very candid, very intelligent, sees things from a great perspective with his background. Scott's good. They put together a solid program. I've seen the speakers. I haven't participated as an attendee. I've only participated as a speaker. But they've had an all-star lineup of people that I love to listen, to, and that I know their stuff. Mine was a two-parter, 1 month after the other on inventory management. I'm a bit of a talking head when it comes to that. And super, super strong engagement from those participants. I'll tell you this, and this is not a plug. This is just, I'm really proud of the guy himself. I want to call him Cody, but I can't remember his exact name. We did these things 1 month after, right? So 1 month and then 4 weeks later, basically.
1 hour? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 1 hour, or until we stopped talking. I think it was around an hour 5, something like that.
It's probably,
if you know me, yeah. We did this thing, and I this wasn't even like my actual consulting. This was I had summarized a lot of the presentations that I've used for speaking in the past, and I put them into a PowerPoint that would take me about an hour, right? And I kind of talked off to the side with some details. Most of the users are Pioneer users. Most of the members are using Pioneer, and I really drove home the culture aspects. I drove home sync growth because I think sync goes. We taught hand in hand with inventory, and really it starts with sync. We did all these things. Their sync numbers grew exponentially in the course of those 4 weeks because of the things that we talked about. And then, and then they used that big picture thinking to correlate the inventory adjustments with it. They, in 1 month, saw a positive cash flow impact from what he just heard me talk about in an hour. And this is now they've been taking the deep dive with my help, as a consultant. Yeah. This was just me, doing this. And I'm telling you right now, you talk about hair on the back of your neck. When he was telling this story to everybody else just 2 days ago, it was like one of the prouder moments that I've had, right?
I'm sure.
Where he's like, that's huge. Even at the high level, you really drove home what was important. And thank you for Core and NCPA for letting me do this. But it was like, this had a significant impact on our business. And he's part of a multi-store group. And now they're instituting the changes that he's leading the way with across the rest of those stores. I mean, if you want to know why I do consulting, that's why. I have to charge to justify the time away from my own businesses. But when you do that and you see people that the light bulb goes off, they put it into action and they have a positive impact, it's worth its weight in gold. It's the most rewarding thing you can do.
That's good. That's good. Wow. All right. Well, I won't let you get out of here without a little prescribable segment here. Okay. So what's Joe reading, watching, listening to, or doing, or looking forward to?
Well, what I look forward to is the next booking. I'll be honest. It's really what's going to be next on my calendar. I've got 2 more Medicare consultations to do today. And I've got a client consultation that's scheduled for this afternoon. And I really, truly get excited about those calls. Selfishly, I learn something every time I help another store. You know, they might not be the best at inventory. They might not understand how they should clean up their third parties, but there's something that they're doing.
Something they're killing it on, right?
They're one of the best in the country at that one.
Totally agree with you, man. Yeah, totally agree with you.
And it is beautiful when you see it. I mean, there's I hate to plug specific people, but there's a guy in Louisiana. I was in his store one time, and I was blown away at some of the programs and things that he had. He had an engineering background, and he had used that in his stores, and it was just beautiful to see his things, right? And I'm in there, and I'm like, well, you may not be great at inventory today, which he is. He's fantastic at it today. But, you know, God, that's brilliant what you're doing. So I really get excited about that. As far as watching, I'm a sucker for Reacher. I read Jack Reacher.
Oh man, that just came. The new season just
drops
came
every
out.
Thursday. I read a ton of a bunch.
That's cool.
And finally, they found the right guy to play Reacher. So, you know,
he's great.
I can happily watch it. Little Tom Cruise was not the guy. He's a great actor, but he wasn't the guy.
Great actor. I thought it was weird too.
Yeah. And then, what am I doing? I got a dog. She's not with me right this second, but she goes to work with me every single day. Her name is Annie. And, I've found that she is a fantastic stress reliever. She keeps me kind of cool and calm and
keeps you going.
Yeah. So that's
good.
Those are some of the exciting things. There's tons more, of course, family, you know, significant others, all that. But, you know, those are the things that are pretty exciting right now.
All right, man. Well, shoot, we're going to let you go. I'll just say this I feel like I say this to everyone because almost everyone we have on gives back so much, man. You give back a ton. You really do. I think just behalf of everybody who even gets to talk to you about something that takes something away and goes, and there's probably so many people that even did what that guy did.
Yeah.
Listening to you that you probably don't even know about.
Well,
that's what's cool about that. So
what do they call it?
Thank you on behalf of everybody from that perspective.
Stars in the crown. I don't need to know about it. Yeah. It's good to help people. It's the best part about doing all the things we do. And thank you guys. Thank you so much for giving me the platform to do it. I only help people that have Pioneer. I told you this earlier. I don't think I can talk philosophy and I can talk culture and I can talk those things. But if you want me to put the tire on the road, you know, give me Pioneer and I can make it bake you a cake. That's what I tell people.
All right. Well, Joe, hey man, well, I know you're busy. I know you got a probably a full schedule lined up, man. We'll appreciate you on.
Always here anytime, brother. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you later. Right. See you, Joe. Bye, everybody.